Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. As we wait for other participants to join, there has been a lot of discussion after the proposal to get after the new building code of Pakistan has been issued by the PEC. And these sort of events should have been PEC, but we took it on ourselves to actually hold such an online event, and where we can have discussion about everything and regarding the merits and demerits of the new code and what are the deficiencies in the new code, so that we can address them in the future. So we have our amongst ourselves very diverse panel for discussion. I will start with Durrani Saab. Durrani Saab, can you introduce yourself? After that, we'll go to Dr. Rafi. And
I'm a structural engineer with about 45 years experience, having done my bachelor's in from UAT, and I'm self-employed for the last 25 years. Otherwise, I worked in NESPAC and overseas for several years.
And I think, sir, आपके बड़े-बड़े projects हैं. Can you list just a few of them?
One thing may be of interest, that whatever we are discussing here, I have been discussing that since 1976, when the nuclear power plant was being built, and we had gone to Paris and were trained to understand what the response spectrum was. Otherwise, we had no idea in that. So, but obviously a lot of water has flown under the bridges. I'm keen to learn, and my colleagues here, they are very well versed with the previous course as well as the new one. And that's about all I can say about myself.
You've been very modest, sir. Durrani Saab is one of the preeminent practitioners of Lahore. He has done major projects, including ये तावन के साथ सर कौन सा था जिस project में you were involved? Mubarak Center.
Yeah, Mubarak Center.
Mubarak Center was, and then there are a lot of buildings in Islamabad that Durrani Saab designs. So we are glad to have you on board, sir. Dr. Rafi Saab, if we may proceed to you, sir, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Dr. Fawad Muzaffar. My name is Muhammad Masood Rafi. I'm a professor and chairman in the Department of Earthquake Engineering at NTD University. I did my PhD from UK and my postdoctorate from Portugal. And I've been serving this university for the last 22 years. Fawad, आप mute हुए हैं.
Sir, thank you very much. This is a mistake that very often the novices like me makes.
Yeah.
So Dr. Rafi Saab is being modest. Dr. Rafi Saab, I remember the NED contingent at Stanford after the Kashmir earthquake, and along with Dr. Lodi, Professor Rafiki, and other, NED has been spearheading research and into the earthquake engineering field in Pakistan. We have another very prominent practitioner with us, Rizwan Saab. Sir, can you introduce yourself? And it's an honor to have you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fawad. Can you hear me?
Ji sir, we can hear
Okay.
you loud and clear, sir.
I'm a civil engineering graduate from UET. I passed in 1980. I served in NESPAC for 4 years, in PPAC for about 6 months, and then started my own practice. And ever since, I've been running my own practice. I've done various types of commercial, institutional, and industrial projects. And I've been teaching now and then. I've been an associate professor at the National College of Arts for about 5 to 6 years. That's about the initial part of my career. That was a part-time position, but at the college, I had the full workload. And thereafter, I ran a few courses in various institutions. I think that's about all.
And Rizwan Saab is also one of the very few practitioners from whom I have learned a lot during the last 10 years after I returned back to Pakistan. Rizwan Saab is also, the founding member probably, or at least the driving force behind PSSE, which is the another forum that is doing a lot of good work for civil engineering in Pakistan. So, Dr. Shahid Saab, can you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for having me on board. My name is Dr. Shahidullah, and currently I'm working as an assistant professor in Earthquake Engineering Center of UET Peshawar. I did my PhD in 2016. During my PhD, I worked on the seismic hazard model for Central Asia. So it was part of the global earthquake model, which has its headquarters in Pavia, Italy. And we had different regional model of this project. So EMCA earthquake model for Central Asia. I was involved in that. And I also worked on developing the hazard model for other countries in Central Asia. And recently, here in the building code of 2021, I contributed in the group 1, which was related to the development of the seismic hazard assessment. So that's about me, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry, I broke off. Dr. Saab, with your introduction, we are expecting another member from Karachi to join us. And S. Nadeem Saab, probably, Professor Rafi knows him well. So let's start the discussion, sir. And we'll start off with the rules are very simple. 5 minutes for each participant. We like to get feedback from the practitioners first. So I thought of no better person to do that than other than Durrani Saab and Mirza Saab. So Durrani Saab, you have your 5 minutes, sir. And if you
Okay,
can kick off the discussion, sir. Thank you.
right, sir. Thank you.
सर जरा शेयरिंग अलाउ कर देंगे
Sorry.
शेयरिंग अलाउ कर देंगे जरा
जी sharing allow. Umar, sharing allow कर दें जी.
Yes, yes,
And
sir.
I will request everyone to keep their mics muted. जब तक दुरानी साहब 5 minutes his. तो उसके बाद then.
It will be quicker to explain through a slide than.
Sure, sir. अभी आपको we are going to allow screen sharing. Umar, screen sharing allow.
Sir, it is allowed.
So can you share now, Durrani Saab?
सर नहीं हो रही Umar sir?
Yes, I'm going to check it again. Can you check now, please?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the floor is yours, Durrani sir.
Yeah. इसमें तस्वीर भी आ सकती है, छोटा कर
कौन सा छोटा?
मेरी
वो आ रही है।
इधर आ रही
नहीं,
है।
वो फोटो भी नहीं आ रही। ये आ रही है, वो
Okay.
डिस्प्ले हो रहा है।
The general impression is that seismic design is more important than wind design. And a lot of codes are more or less, they keep this wind out of the sphere of discussion. Now I start with wind. Now the wind has two components for a high-rise building, say 600 feet. One is the 3-second gust, which is the ultimate, and the velocity is given for 10-meter height, and then the terrain determines what wind pressures would be exerted on the structure itself. But my interest is in wind serviceability, because most of the buildings coming up are apartment buildings. Now, apartment building, the apartment building is crucial because the wind keeps on for about 3 to 4 hours, whereas the seismic effect is only for half a second, half a minute, or maybe a couple of minutes, in which people learn how to accommodate themselves. Now, for wind, if the wind speed keeps on for 4 hours, you find it very difficult to even go to sleep or to work in an apartment, and that is the critical thing. Now, the building code of Pakistan, to the best of my knowledge, just expresses the strength level wind and not the serviceability level wind. The serviceability level wind is one with the mean of 1 year or 5 years. It is up to the practitioner to determine that. Now, against that wind, you have to determine the acceleration at the upper levels and use this graph to determine if the acceleration is within the given limits. And if it is not, you have to remedy the situation. Otherwise, you'll have empty penthouses and people just not being satisfied with the design. And in Pakistan, I know very little attention is given to wind. Now, coming back to the response spectrum analysis, I just want to know why did you stick to ASCE 716 when ASCE 722 was out in 2021, which has very significant changes to the earlier code. So just to amplify. Now this graph is a very good illustration, but it is no good for me because you can read it is for rock. There is no attenuation, nothing else. The period remains within 2 seconds or whatever. But this is based on rock. I am more interested in soil type D and E or D-E, because that is what is going to determine the shape of the response spectrum. And that is probably one of the reasons why 722 requires a 10-second, you know, base and determine the response. Now, I'll show you just a comparison with UBC4. You see, even if you go to UBC4, this is a site-specific one for Islamabad. If you go to UBC4, you will find it lacking.
Well,
Because
perhaps I cannot see any further slide than the first slide. Is if the discussion is related to some slide, then perhaps it will be better if the slide is displayed.
जी मेरा ख्याल है स्लाइड्स को जब आपका वो F5 दबाएंगे तो वो आपका शुरू होगा स्लाइड शो नहीं है, पहला पेज टाइटल पेज ही आ रहा है। जी जी, नाउ दिस इज बेटर। जी दुरानी साहब प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
Yes, sir. They are putting it right, sir. Now, if we stick to the two-period response spectrum, which is inherited from UBC 1997, after which the UBC 1997 became obsolete, but the shape of the spectrum never changed. Now, if you, for this site, if you think that the site lies in zone 4, which means that there is a near source factor, you will find that at a shorter period, you may get a higher response, but we're not interested in them. We're interested in 2 seconds and above. And there the two-period response spectrum fails entirely because the acceleration given by the site-specific one is 3 times that of zone 4, because the zone 4 is sliding down after 1 second. This may have been traditionally the use because the building heights were limited 300, 400. I don't think we can use this spectrum now. Now, 722 has moved on to multi-period response spectra, which more clearly, define the shape and is good for high-rise buildings and long periods. This is a tricky point. Now, if I have a project like this, and I have a site, a spectrum for a certain site, a two-period spectrum, I would prefer to extend the plateau for an approximate analysis, just for my confidence, because I'm not sure, the 1 second spectral acceleration would serve me any purpose. Now, for the multiple period response spectrum, that's a much better thing. Now, how to incorporate it, that we can discuss later. Let me raise the question I have. Do I have some time, sir?
Sir, I think that's pretty much 5 minutes, but if you want to talk more, you can have a minute or two more, if that suffices. That suffices.
Okay. Now, uh, the code is very unclear actually. In US, although they have USGS and which has attenuation relationships for the whole of United States, and you can just use that too. But my friend who is top director with Jacobs, I asked him, "What do you do?" He said, "Even if we have all these tools, for any building of significance, we go for a site-specific response spectrum." Now that is a hell of a lot of time-consuming and expensive exercise. So can the writers of the code recommend some uh, uh, shorter criteria to get to the right response? I sort of uh, complete my submissions for the first round. And
Thank you, Durrani Saab. I'll give the floor to Rizwan Saab before the other side starts to contribute to the discussion. Rizwan
Okay,
Saab, the
thank
floor
you
is
very
yours.
much.
Sir, but before that, I'd like to introduce SN Nadeem Saab, whom I just made a call and I just wanted him to be on board as a panelist. SN Nadeem Saab, are you online? Okay, I think we lost him. Ji, SN Saab, can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, sir? Because all the panelists did that, and briefly, can you introduce yourself? So then we'll move to Rizwan Mirza Saab.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear?
Ji, we
जी
can
जी
hear you loud and clear.
ओके वो एक्चुअली आई डोंट यूज जूम टू मच तो मुझे ऑप्शन ढूंढने में टाइम लग गया सर मैं इस फील्ड में अबाउट 28 years से काम कर रहा हूँ तो आई हैव obviously some knowledge about these codes and building code of Pakistan and also this newer code because we were using IBC code obviously since year 2000. So we are familiar with the code now. Obviously, building code of Pakistan also uses the same base. So I mean, we can go through this presentation and see what are the questions, and then obviously, if I will have any ideas, I can comment on it. I'm basically working in Karachi, and I have been in US for 10 years, about 9 years. And then I came back in 2004 and I worked for Mushtaq and Bilal for 14 years. After that, now I'm currently working for my own company for the last about 2 years. And I have also worked as a visiting faculty at NID University. Dr. Masood Rafi Saab also knows me that I've been teaching. I was teaching at master's level. So this is my brief introduction. And now I think I would like Dr. Rizwan Saab to continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, SN Saab. Rizwan Saab, the floor is yours for 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Without much ado, I'll get right to the point. First of all, I want to deal with enforcement of the code. I draw your attention to the Constitution of Pakistan, 4th schedule, which defines the federal legislative list. After the 18th Amendment, the residue goes to the provinces, and the only clause that I've been able to find that still vests with the Federation is legal, medical, and other professions. This is what they can control. I'll give you an example. The PMDC controls the medical profession, while health becomes a provincial subject after the 18th Amendment. So I think under the Constitution, after the 18th Amendment, we would need the provinces to adopt the code so that it becomes a legal instrument. I'll go back to the Gazette notification that is attached to the code. It's notification relating to 2007 code and not to the current code, because there is no SRO related to the current code. And thereafter, I'll draw your attention to the provision within the code itself, which says that the provisions of this code shall not be deemed to nullify any provision of the local, provincial, or federal law. So it does not have an overriding effect. These are probably the points that need to be addressed if we want to make this a legally binding document. My next point is procedural aspect of the code making. I think the procedure could have been more inclusive, and a debate must have been opened after a draft had been prepared, and the observations of the engineers, which were not part of the code committee, should have been documented, addressed, and if valid, should have been incorporated in the code. I'll go to the observation relating to the loads. As to the loads, Mr. Durrani has addressed a very valid point. My points relating to the rest of the issues are that only 2 wind speeds have been specified for the entire country, and no isobars have been provided as would have been necessary for a proper design. And the code doesn't say that even for those 2 wind speeds, if the wind speed is 3-second gust or fastest mile, and it also doesn't say whether what is the probability of accidents in 50 years adopted wind speeds. Hurricane prone.
Rizwan sir, आप mute पे चले गए sir, and can kindly the rest of the participants keep their mics muted. Thank you. Rizwan sir, आप unmute कर लें sir. You're on mute. उमर, रिजवान साहब को आपने तो नहीं म्यूट किया. रिजवान साहब को अनम्यूट करें.
Sir, I have asked to unmute himself.
रिजवान साहब, सर आपको शायद अनम्यूट का प्रेस करना पड़ेगा. आई एम सॉरी फॉर द. नहीं सर, आप म्यूट में हैं अभी. कैंट हियर यू. हाँ, स्टिल. उमर
जी सर.
आपकी तरफ से तो नहीं कुछ हुआ वो?
नहीं सर.
नहीं,
ये
अब नाउ रिजवान साहब इज अनम्यूटेड. सर अब काइंडली.
ये कहाँ से मिस हुआ है?
Sir, you were talking about the load. जो दुरानी साहब से आप एग्री कर रहे थे लोड के ऊपर.
Okay. So
Sir, from the hurricane part.
yeah. I was saying that the hurricane areas have not been identified geographically, and for that quick loads, I will say that I would have liked to see the geology of Pakistan documented so that I could pick the right numbers from the code. My major observation is that no justification has been provided for adopting the probability of accidents of 2% in 50 years as a default value. The remaining values have been relegated to the appendices, which do not form a part of the code as the code itself states. They have to be separately adopted by the jurisdiction concerned. This is a very important issue because the return period has a lot of implication for the cost especially in the public sector projects. Um, I also, I wonder if it is written somewhere. I've not been able to really dig it out. The source of seismological data. It's not clear to me. I'm not saying that it is missing. I've not been able to discover it. And as per the table 1613.2.31 and 32, F sub A and F sub V values are missing for certain soil site classes and certain periods. This makes our life very difficult because most of the country falls under the softer category. So when you want to design a building other than on rock or very hard soil, you probably need to make a lot of effort, which is a very expensive exercise. Flood hazard maps have not been prepared when we come to the flood loads. So I think my time is running out, but soil and foundation presumptive bearing pressure state the upper value. You can't assume a bearing pressure more than this. This is what the table says. If I'm not going to assume a value more than this, probably I cannot assume a value which has been specified and that should be permitted by the code. So I need to undertake geotechnical investigations. So when I undertake the geotechnical investigations, I don't need this table because I have these specific values with me. So I don't really know why this legacy has been brought into our code from the IBC. Similarly, for the masonry walls, vertical reinforcement has been provided, which for a 10-foot wall, number 7 at 38 millimeter has been borrowed from IBC. I've run my own exercise computing bending moments without surcharge and even with surcharge. I'm really amazed. I can't say if the values are wrong, but apparently the reinforcement is around more than 10 times the required reinforcement. The maximum value that I have computed and verified with longhand is reinforcement is 0.618 square inch per foot, even with 2 feet of surcharge, which is the astro surcharge. So I really wonder, I agree that this is part of the IBC, but IBC will have to, provide its own answers, while we in Pakistan must agree at least to what we have provided within our own code. For the wood design, reference has been made to D3737-03 or whatever is the latest ASTM. The properties are for 3 American woods. This is very strange. Probably a more careful exercise should have been made. I draw your attention to the provisions of a country located very near to us. Probably scores of woods have been included within the code and properties provided so that the engineer working as a designer for the industry can pick up the value of the local woods from that code. I'll not take much of your time because there are other speakers and I think I've already exceeded my time. Thank you very much for your patience. Over to Dr. Fawad.
Thank you, Rizwan Saab. Ahsan Saab, we'd like to hear from you also before I move to the other panel. So you are an American PE and also have been practicing in Pakistan for a long period of time. So, sir, if you have any observations before we move on to Dr. Rafi and Dr. Shahid and then myself.
नहीं sir, I have looked at the code and I just compared some values against the old code which we were using UBC 97, and I thought based on some number crunching, I found out that maybe Karachi, Islamabad, and I think Peshawar. Now they are more close to zone 3. Before, obviously, we were using zone 2B. But I was having some problems in extracting the data for S0, S1 because the graphs are obviously given and we don't have any numbers. In US, obviously, you can basically enter the zip code and get the proper numbers for S0, S1. So I was wondering if we can have something like that in the newer code that will definitely help us to exactly find out some numbers for these two parameters. Otherwise, all engineers will be using different numbers because those graphs were not that clear, and and they're very small. So I think maybe you can do something about it in the updates or something if we have any in the code. I haven't looked at the wind too much because obviously when you work on a project you use it, but unfortunately currently what I have seen is that people are still using the older codes, and obviously, like for example, even in the in the SBCA here in Karachi or in Sindh, they are still not enforcing newer code. So I don't know when exactly everybody will be using this newer code, because we are still using UBC 97 here. So we need to, as far as wind is concerned, wind parameters I need to look at. I haven't really looked at wind parameters, but on seismic I had only these comments. Besides that, obviously it is UBC, it is IBC based code, so we are familiar with it, how to use it, and the code clauses are obviously similar. So I don't have any other further comments besides these.
Thank you, Hasan Saab. Dr. Rafi, we'd like to start with you. And then probably we're gonna see Dr. Shahid, who's having some power issues in Peshawar.
Thank you very much, Fawad. Assalamu alaikum, Hassan. कैसे हैं आप?
वालेकुम सलाम सर, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, आप ठीक है सर?
जी अल्लाह का शुक्र है, बहुत दिनों के बाद आपसे किसी जगह पे मुलाकात हो रही है।
That is very right, that is very right.
देख लें सर,
अब मैं किसे मिलूं आपसे?
अब लाहौर वाले जो हैं वो आप कराची
जी
वालों
जी
को
जी,
आपस
मैं
में
वही
मिला
कहने
रहे हैं।
वाला था, कराची में रहने के बावजूद, because there was a time then he used to visit NED as a faculty, but I think that was quite long time ago.
अच्छा डॉक्टर रफी, आई थिंक इस वक्त मैं, आप और डॉक्टर शाहिद जो हैं वो वी ट्राइंग टू गेट हिम बैक ऑनलाइन, तो why don't we start by responding to some of the things that we have heard. 5 minutes, sir, as per rule.
Yeah, that is what I intend to do. And I was listening to some of the comments because some are very general, of very general nature, without any specific mention of any particular page, table, or clause. So I may not be able to respond to those. I'll start with the comment from Hassan, because that's the most easiest to answer. Hassan, the tables were missed out initially in this book which was printed, but that these have been appended later on, and I'm sure they should be available on the PEC website. So they were missed out in the book, and then somebody who was working on the geohazard part, they realized that higher table rang. So because I processed those tables and I provided them to PEC, so I think they should be available separately on the PEC website. So तमाम शहरों के जो tables हैं, tabular data है, वो available है, और
okay, that is great.
हाँ, वो available है. अब I'm certain that this is available at the PEC website, क्योंकि ज़ाहिर है book में दोबारा से हम नहीं कर सकते, book were distributed, तो books में नहीं आ सकता था, लेकिन वो
सही है सर, we'll take the website. Yes, thank you.
apart from that, first, सबसे पहले I will start that there were people in the committee who have both knowledge and experience, and they were from different sections of the society. They were from academia, they were from practicing section, and they were also from other parts of the society. So the committee that worked on this code was very well represented. So there is no doubt about that. And so the thing that needs to do is that we should have trust. We should have trust that people who were working on the code, they had knowledge and they had experience. So अगर वो trust नहीं होगा तो फिर हर चीज का जवाब देना जो है ना पॉसिबल भी नहीं होगा और वो दिया भी नहीं जा सकता। मैंने कभी आज तक नहीं देखा किसी कोड में कि कोड किसी चीज की जस्टिफिकेशन दे रहा हो, बिकॉज देयर वाज अ मेंशन कि इसकी जस्टिफिकेशन नहीं है। No code in the world provides any justification. कोर्ट्स में जब डेलिब्रेशन होती है उस वक्त सारी चीजें डिस्कस होती हैं, यूजर एंड के ऊपर कोई जस्टिफिकेशन नहीं दी जाती कि ये क्यों किया गया, क्योंकि जो डेलिब्रेशन हो रही होती है उनके नतीजे में चीजें इवॉल्व होती है, उनके नतीजे में चीजें फाइनलाइज होती हैं। तो इसलिए किसी कोड में कभी कोई जस्टिफिकेशन नहीं होती। जस्टिफिकेशन चाहिए होती है तो फिर वो सेपरेट उसके फोरम होते हैं जहां पर ये चीजें डिस्कस हो सकती हैं। विंड का जहां तक ताल्लुक है, इफ विंड डिस्कशन वाज सो इम्पोर्टेंट, फवाद, मे बी यू शुड हैव रिक्वेस्टेड ब्रिगेडियर शाहिद टू ज्वाइन बिकॉज हिज ग्रुप वाज वर्किंग ऑन विंड। एंड वंस अगेन आई नो if through my participation in the meeting, ये जो था, there was a lot of discussion और उसके बाद ये सब चीजें फाइनलाइज हुई हैं। तो इसलिए जहां तक विंड के डाटा का ताल्लुक है, once again I am certain that whatever was available was provided, and this was very much debated, deliberated and discussed in different meetings. उसके बाद ही जो भी मैप्स वगैरह हैं वो इसके अंदर इंक्लूड किए गए। तो बेसिक फिलॉसफी जो यूज की गई है वो ये कि जो आईबीसी है हमने उसी को यूज किया है एज अ बेस डॉक्यूमेंट, जहां पर उनकी परमिशन से किया है कि ये कोई ऐसी चीज नहीं है कि जो हमने बगैर कोई इसमें कॉपीराइट की कोई वायलेंस की गई हो, उनकी परमिशन से की गई है और उनको बता के उनको ऑन बोर्ड लेके गई है। तो जहां पर एडाप्टेशन पॉसिबल थी वहां पर एडाप्टेशन की गई और जहां पर पॉसिबल नहीं थी वहां पर इसको एडॉप्ट ही किया गया है। जहां तक डाटा का ताल्लुक है, डाटा बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है और डाटा चाहिए भी होता है, लेकिन बात यह कि हमारे पास अपना डाटा है क्या। हम अपने किसी पड़ोसी मुल्क से लें या हम अमेरिका से लें, वो डाटा फिर भी हमारा नहीं है। हो सकता है वो हमारे लिए एप्लीकेबल हो रहा हो सकता है नहीं एप्लीकेबल हो रहा हो। तो इस पे तो कोई डिबेट है ही नहीं कि हमें अपना डाटा चाहिए। और डाटा सारे कोड डेवलपमेंट का जो प्रोसेस होता है वो कोई ओवरनाइट हो नहीं सकता। तो हमने जब शुरू किया था तो हमारे पास भी ये सारी लिमिटेशन थी। मैं इसको मेरिट डीमेरिट नहीं कहूँगा, लिमिटेशंस है, हमारी अपनी लिमिटेशन है। लिमिटेशन में सबसे बड़ा जो लिमिटेशन है वो कि हमारे पास अपना काम है कितना, हमारे पास अपना डाटा है कितना। तो इसमें नेचुरली ये एक इवॉल्व होने वाला प्रोसेस है जिसमें टाइम लगता है। और इंपॉर्टेंट चीज होती है कि आप कोई फर्स्ट स्टेप लें और आगे के स्टेप को प्लान करें। अब 2007 में जो कोड बना था, 2019 तक उस पर किसी का कोई फोकस नहीं था कि देखा जाए कि इसको कैसे रिवाइज करना है। इसलिए कि उसके लिए जो रिसोर्सेज चाहिए होती है वो भी अवेलेबल नहीं होती। 2019 में मुझे याद है इसमें कुछ काम शुरू हुआ था। हमने लोगों से बात करना शुरू की थी, जो एजेंसीज थी जो कि इंटरेस्ट में थी इसको रिवाइज कराने में। तो स्टिल उसके बावजूद भी इट टुक नियरली 1.5 years टू कन्विंस देम टू प्रोवाइड अस रिसोर्सेज टू स्टार्ट दिस वर्क। So yes, there are certainly some limitations in the code, but I can assure you that the code has got the best available information and knowledge and data which is available in Pakistan. There is no further data, no further information available in Pakistan. और फिर मैं वही कहूँगा कि आप अगर आपको डाटा कहीं से लेना ही है तो we need to take it from very credible and reliable sources rather than from sources which we do not which perhaps may not trust very well. Fawad, I'm done.
Okay, sir. So my share of the 5 minutes, and I'll very briefly go through all of the observations that meticulously have been put by the practitioners. Sir, यहाँ पे दो तीन बातें हुई. सबसे पहले तो we talked about wind load. I remember that there was a very heated discussion about wind load. We tried our level best to get the wind load data from the meteorological department. We wrote multiple times to them. The fact of the matter is that sorry state of the country is okay, they didn't have the data. So then uske baad there was no option left but to have these very basic sort of two winds speeds specified for those two different terrain conditions in Pakistan. Number two is flood hazard maps. Again, everything in this country, and I don't want to get into trouble, but everything in this country is behind a certain sort of censorship. This data, World Bank funded project has conducted a survey of Pakistan. This data was available with certain agencies, but they told us that they won't give it to us. And we asked them, this is for the development of Pakistan. This is a building code of Pakistan document, but they said, gee, this has got defense repercussions. You can do whatever you want, but we're not going to give you the data. So इसलिए सर flood hazard maps, you rightly pointed out नहीं है. जहाँ तक we talked about a little bit about the enforcement of the code. I agree that these legal issues need to be resolved, but then what is the status of UBC 97? Because UBC 97 was also sort of mandated by the PEC, and that was before the 18th Amendment. So after the 18th Amendment, is it still a valid document for or legal document for design for the local provinces? And then if the status of the BEC has to be delegated to the provincial level, then this is a bigger discussion. And I agree that this is an important one. But in US, most of the states are more independent from the federal level as compared to our provinces. They have only one ASCE 7 document, which is applicable to the whole United States. I think the way forward should be we should also have one building code of Pakistan for all of the provinces. And this is actually what is done in our neighbor to the east. They also have a one code for the whole of the country. Uske baad baat hui, sir, we talked about procedure aspects of the code. I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you that this document should have been put on the website for open discussion. But there are certain considerations which I cannot talk to you about on this forum. And Dr. Rafi knows them very, very well. We were in a hurry to put this document together and issue it because we knew if this doesn't happen by a certain date, then it will never happen. And all of us agreed. There were I think 4 dozen people from belonging to different industry and different part of the country and everything. All of us agreed that it won't be good that after spending so much money, which was an aid money, by the way, can you believe that this document was not put together by Pakistani taxpayers' money? This was effort of NED Karachi. Dr. Lodi, ko to main janta hu, he secured the funding, and this was funded by the Americans. So we didn't want to let go of the opportunity. So we did all we could, and but we properly iske procedural aspects we should have ideally it should have been put online for the debate and then enforced. the other thing that we talked about was, look, there is a fundamental change in, this is regarding earthquake engineering. There is a fundamental change in how we characterize a seismic hazard since ASE 710. Dr. Rafi, I think you will agree with me, and Rizwan Saab also knows about this. Before ASE 710, geometric mean was considered as the as the standard for combining effect of different orthogonal effects of the seismic earthquake effects. But since ASE 710, we have now shifted to the maximum direction response spectrum. Now there is a jump of at least 20%. Then or Pakistan Building Code, the previous one had a probability, all of the ground motions had the probability of exceedance of 10%. The world, and Rizwan Saab actually pointed this out, that why did we adopt the 2% probability of exceedance? And well, we adopted the 2% probability of exceedance because the Indian Building Code also did the same. They are a poor country. We adopted the 2% probability of exceedance because it is the world standard. We didn't want our buildings to lag behind by a lot. And thirdly, I think, sir, you will agree with me that bulk of the cost is also due to the gravity load effects, and only 10 to 15% of the cost or the forces in the horizontal and vertical members are due to earthquake effects in most of the country. So, 2% probability of exceedance does have add a little bit of to the cost, but it is actually what the world wants us to be at. Then, more importantly, Durrani Saab has been very rightly pointing out about the need of site-specific response spectrum. Let me first point it out that the Saudi Building Code, also based on AC 720, is AC 716 or 722, I think. They're right now they're trying to shift to AC 722, but the previous Saudi Building Code was AC 716 based. The Indian Building Code is also using the 2-point response spectrum. The Saudi Building Code also uses the 2-point response spectrum. The ASCE 4117, which is a more advanced document as compared to ASCE 7822, mandates use of 2-point response spectrum. So the approach has to be, in my opinion, better understood. What Durrani Saab pointed out rightly is that we need to have a site-specific response spectrum for important projects. I completely agree with that. But there is an empirical way to go around this problem, and that was deliberately put in the ASCE 716, because at that time, Americans did not have enough understanding of their own geotechnical database of the country. And basically, they proposed 2 methods. And the first method is where you incorporate the effect of attenuation of ground motion signals from the bedrock level to the surface by using FA and FV. So the bulge that Durrani Saab showed is conservatively incorporated in the empirical approach for softer soils, and by using a conservative value of FV. Now, with the passage of time, Americans now know much better about the spatial variation of geotechnical conditions, because they have conducted so many seismic borehole surveys around the world, around their own country. So what they can afford to do right now is they can afford to conduct a huge amount of simulations of ground motion attenuation from above the bedrock level throughout the continental United States. And they can actually put in that database on a website. On the other hand, we don't have that facility. So the question for us to answer is, and I'll put this question to for the second round to Durrani Saab and Rizwan Saab also, is do we keep on using the UBC 97, which is a 25-year-old code now, or do we first move to ASCE 716 and then then if we are ready, we can then move to ASCE 722. Now the ASCE 716 does actually has a full chapter, which is chapter 22 or chapter 23 on site-specific response spectrum. So we can also do site-specific response spectrum using ASCE 716. There's nothing wrong with that. But do we want to do it? In IDAP, we actually are conducting downhole bore surveys, and we have procured software which then allows us to attenuate the ground motion bedrock level signal to the surface level, and we will we are able to calculate the site-specific response spectrum. Everyone else can also do that. So, but from the point of view of Pakistan Building Code, this provision of site-specific response spectrum is there because this Pakistan Building Code 2021 is based on ASCE 716. So I hope I've answered most of the questions that I could think about. And with that, I'll, if it's appropriate, Durrani Saab, I'll hand over the floor for you for the second round of your 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I still don't find my answer for serviceability wind, which is much more important than the seismic side. I didn't get any answer. Now, this.
Ahmed, can you mute yourself, please?
I said I did not get any answer for serviceability wind, which is used for occupation comfort and which accelerations are generated by ISO. So that is a very important part in high-rise buildings, much more so than the 3-second gust or whatever the strength level design is. Now, well, anyway, we put that behind us. What I have in mind is that, yes, we can, and we have been using shake to, from the bedrock level up to the free field level. Now, sir, you'll be, you will be knowing that the attenuation or soil, etc., does not only occur vertically. There are horizontal attenuations also. The soil is an infinite medium, it can do anything. Now, this vertical thing is the simplest and can be done by any software like SAFE, which is one dimensional only, and would be a very crude approximation. Now, we are multi-period kind. Now, this is the first and very modest level of a multi-period response. What you will determine is that design multi-period response spectrum takes up, goes up beyond, and at something like 2 or 3 seconds, it still has quite a significant SA value, which is 0.6. Now, what they did and what I copied was that they extended the plateau for the ELF, 2-period design spectrum, site class DE. Now you can see that this horizontal black spectrum goes up to 5 seconds, log scale. Yes, sir. 5 seconds. So how do you account for that? Plus, you have a missing link in TL. You don't give any value. TL की value, we don't find that. Now, how can I? Okay. Yes. Can somebody give me this value so that I can complete my response fraction? But mind you, the peak is again between T0 and Ts and starts falling to 1 second and etc. And my period is 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds. Where do I go from here? The third point which I wanted to raise, not as a deficiency, I know the constraints of writing a code, and I don't expect anything, but this code apparently does not apply for buildings taller than 300 or 400 feet, to the best of my knowledge. It doesn't apply for 600 feet, 800 feet, which are commonly coming up. And we do not know where to go for our data. So we use our judgment and do it. But that is no good in the presence of highly sophisticated building code of Pakistan 2021. I think that is probably the end of my submissions.
Thank you, sir. And I'll actually forgot about the serviceability, and I'll answer on my turn, sir. So, Rizwan sir, can you, sir, your turn, your floor.
Thank you very much. You have been very forthcoming in addressing our concerns and questions, and I think this is a very productive dialogue. While on the other hand, I'm very disquieted at the lawyer-like response to some of our questions, that I have not been able to cite chapter and verse the various observations regarding the code. Within 5 minutes, I could not have done it. If I've been allowed a slideshow, I have a copy of images of all the sections of the code where I have observations. And these are very small sections. When I point to wind, it's a 2-page section. I don't need to cite the numbers. It's very clear what I'm talking about. Some of my questions have not been addressed. Some of what I have not said has been put into my mouth. It has been said that I'm doubting the credibility or the capacity of the team who developed the code. I have never said it. I hold everybody in great esteem, and I'm sure that everybody who worked on the team are highly educated and qualified people. I just talked about the methodology. It's a matter of principle that the code committee should open the draft for public debate, and I've been said that no justification is required. In the United States, the codes committees open their drafts for discussion. The comments are documented, the responses are documented, and they are there forever for everybody to see. It's an economic, technical, social, commercial question. Why 2% probability of accidents? We can't afford it. Maybe. Buildings are going to be more expensive. The political people should have been there. They should provide their input because the code would provide the bottom line for everyone. I'm not saying that it is wrong. You have quite rightly pointed out that this is what everybody else has done, but they are affluent countries. We lived with a higher risk, but we knew that even that risk was a trade-off. Buildings were not going to collapse over our heads because that was the minimum assurance that we had from the code. They were codes revolving around the safety of the people and not about the safety of the property. Insurance was the answer. But Dr. Fawad, I agree with Mr. Naim Durrani about the horizontal component of wave attenuation. And I draw your attention to what I cannot show because my time is short. I can share that information with you privately because the time is short, otherwise it's not a secret. The 2005 event of Kashmir was recorded at Nellore, at Murree, and at Ahmedabad. That is the locations where the mirroring stations were present. And the response spectra at these three different locations were markedly different from each other. While Ahmedabad and Nellore were probably, if I correctly remember, were equidistant from the epicenter because of the intervening geology. Vertical crosshole survey right under the site is, as you correctly pointed out, is the answer for vertical attenuation right under the site. What happens to the wave from the source to the site is also a very crucial question, and that is why I had raised the question of geology, because intervening geology is going to change the wave attenuation period. So I fully agree that it's a complex question. We need so much information. We need attenuation functions. At best, we can make assumptions. We are a resourceless country. I agree with you. I'm not here to raise objections. It's very easy to raise objections. I fully recognize that 30 of you or whatever the number were had their limitations. I fully acknowledge that. And I agree with you that you have at least moved forward, at least done something. It's very easy to find faults. I'm not here to find faults. I'm here to enter into a dialogue with my colleagues who are very knowledgeable people. I repeat, very knowledgeable people. I have no doubt about it. I am the humblest of them all. I'm just a humble practitioner living a very, very silent life. But I have my probably a right under Article 19 to say what I believe is true. That is where I will end. I will not take much of your time, but I particularly thank you for your fair acknowledgement of where we were right and where the shortcomings were. It's a very, very good and open attitude. Thank you very much.
Ansar, great to have you, and I am enjoying the dialogue too much. So probably we're going to have future, topics and discuss it accordingly. So, with your permission, Nizam Saab, Ahsan Saab, your turn, sir. Your floor for 5 minutes.
I think we had a very good discussion, and we should have more discussions like this in future also. And all participants have actually raised some questions, and they were very valid. Like, for example, long time period TL value, which Dharan has pointed out, obviously it's correct. It's missing. We need to have some guidance about it. So I think we need to have more sessions like this so that we can cover more of these things which we feel that should be part of the Building Code of Pakistan in the coming discussions, if we can have. Overall, it was a good discussion. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Ahsan Saab. Dr. Rafi Saab, the floor is yours, sir, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Fawad. I think, yes, if there is some information which is not available, we can obviously look into that. So I'm not sure why we have missed out such an important information. There may have been some discussion on it. So once again, if there is anything which is not available, that may perhaps be a slightly different matter. And that is something that once again could be discussed, and an answer to that can be found out. TL, yes, okay. And once again, regarding wind, I think whatever best information was available was included. And if something was not there, this was only because this is not available in the country, or this was not made available to us despite of all the efforts that we did.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Hafiz. So I'll take a very brief window of time. So sir, TL के बारे में we've talked about it. We know that TL is not there in the Building Code of Pakistan 2021, but we also, and let me tell you that this was deliberated upon very intensely in the seismic group. We needed research. Again, we needed data that did not exist. For those of for the consumption of the general audience, TL is the boundary between the constant velocity and constant displacement region of the response spectrum, right? And so what we are talking about is that a limitation in the Building Code of Pakistan for buildings that are super tall. So I remember having a discussion with Durrani Saab, I think a few months back, and I think the kind of a building in Islamabad for this constraint to be valid was about 30 to, I think, 40-story high building, and it is whereas we recognize that this needs to be included in the new code, which should come out very soon, if you ask me. But we need certain amount of research that needs to be conducted in the universities before we are able to include the TL maps or isobars in the Building Code of Pakistan 2021. But yes, if you're designing a 48-story building in Islamabad, then this is a constraint. But for 99% of the building, this is not a constraint. And so that's probably can be taken as one step towards the ideal goal. Wind serviceability of the window. Sir, this is actually, if you allow me, serviceability of the wind load is not addressed in ASC 722 and ASC 716. Americans fundamentally lack in recognition of this concept. And as I learned, as you know, I encountered this problem, and I resorted to Durrani Saab, and Durrani Saab were rightly, made available to me the Canadian Building Code and also some of the Euro codes. I think the best resource is the Canadian Building Code. So even the Americans are using the Canadian document. I think it was I don't remember, it was the proper building code or a certain document for serviceability of the building under wind load. And this is a very important aspect. I completely agree with you on this one. I think I've forgotten about a comment that was made about horizontal and vertical attenuation. Sir, I'll present to you the state of the art in the next 2 minutes. The state of the art is that the horizontal attenuation of ground motion is given by attenuation functions with statistical baskets that are not region specific. Now, this is the international standard. We do not have attenuation functions for the subcontinent region only. We do not have attenuation functions for the Pacific plate only. What they are doing is there is an assumption called ergodic assumption. Ergodic assumption is where they formulate these attenuation functions based on a certain site source. So if you have a thrust fault, there is a separate basket of attenuation function. There is a separate basket of data from which the attenuation functions are driven. If you have a volcano, which is a point source, they have a separate basket of data for another set of attenuation functions. And if you have subduction zone regions, they have another basket for data of subduction zone regions. But there is no such thing as site-specific attenuation, horizontal attenuation function, because deep down, the bedrock level is pretty consistent. The Earth crustal, the crust of the Earth, which is below the overburden, is pretty, the density of it is pretty consistent. Or if it is not, they do not have a sufficient amount of statistical occurrences to formulate region-specific horizontal attenuation functions. So the world class is they conduct probabilistic seismic hazard analysis. Now, Fawad Najam and the UT Peshawar guys were very active, and also Dr. Muhammad Ali were very active um, in conducting probabilistic seismic hazard analysis of Pakistan. What they were doing was they attenuated the horizontal ground motions from known sources of faults in our northern regions. And we can debate as to how accurate that is, but that data was based on the ergodic assumption, which is the international basket of data used for statistical um, for statistical computation of the attenuation functions. There was a discussion about Nilor and Ahmedabad, sir. I completely understand that, and when in performance-based lectures, they showed an example, and I cannot forget this. In San Francisco, they had one sort of accelerometer installed on the main land of San Francisco, and then there is a Treasure Island, which is basically an island in the bay. They had now the horizontal proximity of the two accelerometers is probably 20 miles or 15 miles, and the accelerometers recorded completely different ground motions. And so what was the reason? It was not the change in horizontal attenuation of the seismic signals. It was solely attributed to the difference in the site class of the two accelerometers. And I'll share this, if I can find this, I'll share the slide with you guys on this one. So I hope I've been able to answer or sort of, I attempted to add to the discussion on these two threads. Now, I think we've concluded cycle number 2. I will actually, with your permission, first of all the panelists, if they can unmute, and if you want to have some discussion on certain thread, I'm open for that. And after that, we go for the question answer session from the audience. So, Durrani Saab, Rizwan Saab, अगर कोई question if you want to ask, Rafi Saab, Dr. Saab, आप भी अगर unmute कर लें. So, just if you want to discuss something before we go to the audience, please.
Sir, I don't have much to add actually. It was quite a thorough discussion, and I respect the level of the engineers who wrote the code. And as I said, writing a code is a huge thing to consider, and always you or somebody wants them. But my only suggestion is that why was the structural engineering practicing community not involved in this code preparation. Why? Why only the academics?
सर मैं तो ऐसे एकेडमिक प्रैक्टिशनर है मुझे मुझे दोनों तरफ कर लीजिए डॉक्टर रफी आई
फवाद,
थिंक
इसके अलावा जो पूरी लिस्ट है वो कोर्ट के शुरू में लगी हुई है और उसमें ज़ाहिर देखा जा सकता है कि तमाम जितनी भी वॉक्स हैं जो रेलेवेंट थे उन सब के लोग मौजूद थे, तो प्रैक्टिसिंग इंडस्ट्री के लोग भी उसमें रिप्रेजेंट हुए हुए हैं।
but sir this was not an I let me tell you that this was not a deliberate omission yeah there was no attempt to कि जी के कोई खास community exclude की जाए I think part of the reason was it was so quick. We had to come up with a document, and I think 3 months, over a period of 3.5 months, we did that.
और remember कि this was a COVID period also.
Yeah, I remember
We're going
having.
through all that, what was happening during that time, no travel, nothing. I mean, people were getting sick and ill, and we were not able to contact. So everything was happening during that time.
जी. So yeah, I'm having some questions जो मैं देख रहा हूँ अपने स्क्रीन के ऊपर. Bakar Salim, if you can, because I'll go through the questions in the order that has been received. Bakar, can you, if you can hear us, can you unmute yourself and ask the question that you have put to the forum? Bakar. Okay, let me read Ji. Salam, my question is how realistic and reliable these SS and S1 values are. So if anyone wants to, or
Well, these are the most reliable data for the moment.
yeah,
Once
Dr.
again, that brings me to the same point that instead of questioning the abilities of people, it will be rather be good for everyone, for all of us, that we trust people who were involved in bringing all this information or in gathering all this information. These are the best people. I obviously interact with them. I do not work in seismology much, but जो आपने नाम लिए फवाद नजम और ये पेशावर से यूईटी के जो लोग थे और प्लस आईएसटी, they are the best available people in Pakistan. They have the knowledge, experience, and they are respected all over the world.
And if I may, sir, look, S1 and SS values, they keep on evolving even in the US. And this is first iteration for adoption of these values. The data, the next question, I'll come to the next question, from where did you get the data? So two types of data were, four types of data were required. Number one, identification of the sources. The identification of the line sources, the main boundary thrust, the main boundary, the salt range slip faults, strike slip faults, the Makran faults, the Koh-Sulaiman faults, they have been identified. And this is not due to only the Pakistanis having conducted research into this field. Roger Bilham is a big name. There is a lot of papers, and Rizwan Saab actually sent me a couple of papers in which these faults were thoroughly identified. So faults ke bare mein we know pretty well where the threat level originates from. The other thing was the slip rate of these faults. That we had the data for this for one or two sources, and that with the passage of time, I think that's going to improve. But we had that data from University of Illinois studies, Kim PhD thesis, and I'll share that thesis on the forum, where you can see that people have thoroughly worked on in northern areas of Pakistan. The third is जो आपके horizontal attenuation functions है, मैंने आपको कहा world class, वो जो दुनिया में assumption यूज हो रही है, इंडोनेशिया में, अमेरिका में, कैलिफोर्निया में, इंडिया में, जो assumptions what those guys are using, we have used the same attenuation functions, and there's no such thing as site region-specific horizontal attenuation functions. This is what we have used. Then जहाँ तक बात थी जो लैक करते थे वो where we lacked was TL. जिस तरह दुरानी साहब ने quite rightly pointed out कि TL is not present in the current building code of Pakistan. We lacked that data. We couldn't do that, but we knew that the applicability of that data is for very specialized buildings only. एंड जो दूसरी एक दो चीजें जो लैक करते थे वो आपने आइडेंटिफाई ऑलरेडी कर दी, जिसमें वी डोंट हैव dense enough data of the spatial variation of geotechnical conditions in Pakistan. So we couldn't go for the multi-point response spectrum. We had to adopt the ASC 716 approach. So the next question that I have is, sir, my question is, RITS model analysis method applicable with building code of Pakistan 2021? I think Rizwan Saab, RITS and eigenvalue analysis pe, I think if you can contribute a little bit.
I think for that you need time histories, and we do not have time histories. Probably synthetic time histories or white noise need to be generated, which are consistent with the response spectra that we are targeting. This would especially be applicable to buildings which would have horizontal or vertical irregularities. Otherwise, I know that you have been conducting time history analysis for various structures, but because of my intellectual leanings, I generally prefer response spectrum analysis, and I think it's adequate for most of the cases. This is from my limited knowledge, and I think you can dilate on it in a much better way.
Or perhaps we can discuss it in a subsequent meeting, because that's a very interesting topic that I would like to actually have a very educated discussion on. So I think this is with this. Umar, do we have any other questions?
Fawad, because
Sir.
there was a mention of recorded time history from the 2005 Kashmir earthquake. I was wondering if somebody has it, because I have tried over the years, Nilor and other places, but I wasn't really successful in getting that.
वो बिल्कुल नाम ना नहीं सर, एक जगह पे मैंने जुगाड़ लगाया हुआ है.
अच्छा.
मुझे मिलेगी तो मैं.
There was a mention that it was recorded at three different places, and there was a
Yeah.
record available. So I was just like, oh
Just
my
like-
God, why don't I have it?
Just like everything else, sir, वो भी for certain reasons is not available
हाँ,
for civilian
हाँ,
population.
नेशनल डिफेंस का इशू है
वो भी नेशनल डिफेंस का इशू है सर.
मेरे पास वो ग्राफिकल फॉर्म में है, लेकिन जाहिर है हमें तो डेटा चाहिए जिसको हम प्रोसेस कर सकें.
ग्राफिकल फॉर्म में भी है तो वो भी हम प्रोसेस तो कर सकते हैं, लेकिन जिन्होंने ग्राफिकल फॉर्म में दिया उनसे फिर हम पूछ सकते हैं कि भाई हम वैसे डाटा दे.
I actually got a digital format of it, लेकिन वो जब मैंने देखा तो उसके अंदर तमाम नॉइज मौजूद थी, और when I placed plotted the displacement time history and the वो सारी की सारी नॉन जीरो जा रही थी.
हाँ, वो इस तरह के 2-3 रिकॉर्ड है. मेरे पास भी एक रिकॉर्ड है, लेकिन जब मैं उसको देखता हूं तो मैं कहता हूं यार ये दिस इज प्रोबेबली द डूम्सडे. इट्स ऑन द अदर फ्रंट. वो डूम्सडे वाला किस्म का कोई है यार. इतना सुवियर तो नहीं था.
राइट सर.
अगर आप आर सक्सेसफुल देन प्लीज डू शेयर इट.
मैं नहीं सर, वो मैंने किसी से वादा किया, मैं बिल्कुल शेयर नहीं करूंगा. वो आप मुझसे बाद में फोन कीजिए.
चले, कोई बात नहीं.
I hope he's not listening to our
एक बात मैं भी करना चाहता हूँ.
सर
अभी हुई है, which relates to capacity of the team. जैसे I repeatedly said that I have no doubt in general, on principle, about the capacity of the team, but it's a fact of life that in 1986 a code was developed in Pakistan, and nobody doubted the capacity of the team, and then 2005 happened. I think if as an ordinary, very ordinary civil engineer, I raise questions, the questions should not be brushed aside by saying that, how dare you question the capacity of the team? Everybody agreed to what the 1986 team did. Myself and Mr. Durrani read 2 papers in a conference that was arranged by the C&W department, in which the entire country was represented, and the unfortunately or fortunately, the person who was presiding that session headed the organization who had prepared the 1986 code. And we raised very fundamental theoretical questions which were providing the underpinning to the code. And that is, that shows how prophetic our words were. And if we had been snubbed at that time, I think that would have been a very wrong thing to do. We should be an open society where difference of opinion should be recognized. When I say that I differ, it doesn't mean that I know more than you. I have a different point of view. And we should sit together and probably converge on a consensus. And that's the only way.
I completely agree. So this is what we are here for.
Fawad, I'll once again, I'll only add to what has been said is that the impression that was given by some of the comments was based on what was said about the doubts that I felt were related to the competency of the team. But then at this, on the other hand, because I was in Kashmir after 2019 Mirpur earthquake, there was a building which was only 2-storied building, and the devastation that it underwent because of this 5.7 magnitude earthquake was unbelievable. And somebody told me, or the owner rather of the building told me, that it was designed by someone, a practicing engineer. So then we need to look in a broader prospect. 2005 happened not just because there was a code, but it perhaps because that the code was not implemented. It was not really the fault of the code. Perhaps more blame goes to the implementation of the code. Any code, 1986 or 2005, I mean, if it is implemented, there is relatively a much more higher margin of safety than when it is not implemented.
Sir, what Rizwan Saab and you are saying are the same things. This is a continuously evolving process. We come up with codes. There are limitations in every code, sir. And I completely agree with both of you. So it's a pleasure to have all of you take out the time on such a day. And we're going to put this conference or panel discussion on YouTube. I'm going to share this on the forum. And Dr. Rafi Saab, we are going to add you to a forum of around 500 people. आप उसको म्यूट कर दीजिएगा क्योंकि मुझे पता है आपको वक्त नहीं होता, कभी कभी देख लीजिएगा. ठीक हो गया. Thank you very much, Rizwan Saab, Naeem Durrani Saab, Ehsan Saab, and Dr. Rafi Saab. पिशावर वालों से मैं बाद में बात करूंगा कि उन्होंने जो है सीख कबाब खा अपना चपली कबाब खा के वो किधर गए हैं. उनकी पावर जो है वो एन वक्त पे उनकी पावर फेलियर हुआ और वो जो है ना 9-11 हो गए. So Peshawar or Islamabad
we may have another session at some other time where we can invite the
perhaps I think we'd like to have a discussion on response spectrum versus time history analysis if Rizwan Saab allows that discussion to.
हाँ, अभी 11:44 हुए हैं. मैं डॉक्टर शाहिद साहब की एक बात पर ब्रीफ कमेंट करना चाहता हूँ. शायद ये 1986 का कोड डिमांड करता है कि इस पर पूरा सेशन रखा जाए. उस कोड की बुनियाद ये थी कि पास्ट में अगर कोई इवेंट हुआ है इंटेंसिटी की टर्म्स में, नॉट रिक्टर स्केल के ऊपर, वही इवेंट दोबारा होगा. इस पर पाकिस्तान की जोनिंग कर दी गई। इसका मतलब ये है कि ये इक्वल रिस्क के ऊपर सारे मुल्क की जोनिंग नहीं की गई। ये एक बेसिक फिलोसॉफिकल फॉल्ट था उसमें। मैं किसी की अहलियत पर नहीं शक कर रहा। हम 86 में बतौर कौम जहां खड़े थे, शायद यही होना था। आज 2022 में हम बहुत से लोगों के कंधों पे चढ़ के ऊंचे नजर आ रहे हैं। हमने लोगों से सीखा है। उन लोगों के पास सीखने के लिए कुछ नहीं था। शायद उन्होंने जो किया वो हमारे बुजुर्ग थे, ठीक ही किया अपनी लिमिटेशन। और सिर्फ मैं डॉक्टर शाहिद साहब को ये वाइन नॉलर बता रहा हूँ कि फिलोसॉफिकल एरर थी उसमें। रिकॉर्ड लेके तो जो माजी में हुआ बस इससे ऊपर नहीं हो सकता। ये तो कोड में लिखा हुआ था, 86 के कोड में। मैं उस वक्त प्रैक्टिसिंग इंजीनियर था।
ठीक हो गया सर। सो थैंक यू वेरी मच। If you allow sir, so we can have another subsequent discussion on this topic. And if you, Dr. Rafi, you want to add to the discussion or?
No, I'm fine.
So thank you, sir. Thank you for the audience, and thank you for putting all the questions. Thank you, ji. Assalamu alaikum.
खुदा हाफिज फवाद।